Round three. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Parul, and I'm the first government speaker. The resolution is the United States federal government should ban the use of animal testing in scientific research. There's no definition because everything is pretty self-explanatory. This is a policy round, and our standard is net benefits. Our first contention is that there are other alternatives that are more ethical and safer than animal testing. Animals are too different to be a main source of testing, and research has been done to test on human cells, which is way better than animal testing. Humans and animals are very different, so animal experience often produce inaccurate or unusable results. An example is 94% drugs that pass for animals don't work for humans. Animals also do not get many of the human diseases that people do, such as many types of heart disease and many types of cancer. And the spread of bad vaccines and leads to more problems than the disease itself. The impacts of this are the humans are harmed because of misleading animal testing results. And it's death with no benefits, which is unnecessary and preventable. Death is inherently bad. The spread of bad vaccines is also makes people spend unnecessary money and put their faith in something that doesn't work, which could make their condition worse. So and sick people are also poorer usually. All the money that went into testing animals would have been wasted since the results won't work on people. Our second contention is that it's cruel and inhumane. Our warnings are that animals are deliberately sickened with toxic chemicals or infected with diseases. They also live in barren cages and are then killed when the experiment ends. Animals aren't adequately protected at the moment since 95% aren't protected by the Animal Welfare Act, such as birds, fish, rats, and mice. There is more than 100 million animals that suffer and die in the US every year in cruel chemical, drug, food, and cosmetics tests, as well as in medical training exercises and curiosity-driven medical experiments at universities. Violations of the Animal Welfare Act at the federally funded New Iberia Research Center in Louisiana included a maltreatment of primates who are suffering such severe psychological stress that they engaged in self-mutilation. Infant primates wake and alert during painful experiments, and chimpanzees are being intimidated and shot with a dart gun. Most experiments lead to unnecessary death because of miscalculations and mistakes, which is unnecessary, and it's a loss of life, which is bad. Less than 1% of which is like less than 1% actually helps the animals or the environment, according to understandinganimalresearch.org.uk. The impacts of this are the population of animals will decrease. It's like a colony collapse type of thing, which means like the fall of the ecosystem, which means everyone will die. And we also betray our own morals and lives at loss for no reason, which means like no death is better than death. In conclusion, animal testing should be eliminated because it causes pain and suffering to the experimental animals, and other means of testing product toxicity are available. And medicinal research tends to result in unusable medicine that doesn't work on people. Any research with animals and their behavior based on experimentation in labs is purely and wholly inhumane. The the opposition has unnecessary death and ours doesn't, so ours benefits outweigh theirs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Tucker, with your rebuttal, I saw you raising your hand. I'm going to be honest. This is my first time judging. And so I'm not entirely sure what the rules are. Now, if you're making your statement and he raises his hand, it's my understanding that you can call him on him or not. Um, Is that,
I didn't see his hand.
oh, okay,
I wasn't on the.
okay.
Yes, in a normal debate round, I would stand up and raise my hand and wait for recognition by the speaker. And then when the speaker recognizes me, I can ask my question. Also, and that the question and response would happen on the speaker's time, specifically for online debates right now. Because of technical issues, you can also interrupt the speaker to tell them that like their audio isn't working or you didn't hear something, and that doesn't count against the opponent's time.
Okay.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Why don't you go ahead with your rebuttal?
Okay. So let me give a brief roadmap of time, an introduction. My name is Tucker R. Toomey. My preferred pronouns are he, him. I'll be the first speaker for the negation on this round. I will be reading 3 arguments for my own case and then addressing the flaws in the affirmation case. Is everybody ready? Hearing nothing, I'll begin. So first, we'll define animal testing as the practice of using non-human animals in scientific experimentation. Obviously, this includes medical testing, cosmetic testing, scientific research, etc. Animal testing is also known as in vivo or testing, which is Latin for in living tissue. And then next, we'll define net benefits as the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. Now, on to our first disadvantage about medical research. Number 1, quote, the use of animals in some forms of biomedical research remains essential to the discovery of the causes, diagnoses, and treatments of diseases and suffering in both humans and animals, according to Stanford University. Quote, not only do humans benefit from this research and testing, but hundreds of drugs and treatments developed for human use are now routinely used in veterinary clinics as well, helping animals live longer, healthier lives. Quote, vaccines tested on animals have saved millions of animals that otherwise would have died from rabies, distemper, feline leukemia, infectious hepatitis virus, tetanus, anthrax, and canine parvovirus. So, yes, so the link, that is what happens after the plan passes, is that the plan passes. This will set back medical research by years, and fewer medical treatments will be discovered. So the impacts of this, what happen, are that there will be, as a result of these fewer treatments, sickness and death to humans and sickness and death in animals. So this completely negates whatever harms to animals there are. Next, I'll be reading a counterplan, which explains how we believe this issue should be solved. So the United States federal government will ban all animal testing of cosmetics products. Once again, the United States federal government will ban all animal testing of cosmetics products. So this excludes legitimate medical research, but includes non-essential purposes such as cosmetics. So solvency, that is why this counterplan is better. Animal research in the medical field is highly regulated, and essential medical research is not hindered. Cosmetics are not essential for human life, so the counterplan minimizes harm to animals by banning cosmetics from being tested, but does not hurt human or animal medical research. Next, on to the advantage to the counterplan. So this will accelerate the development of alternatives to animal testing. So the uniqueness, that is what is wrong in the world right now. Alternatives to animal testing exist, but are not in common use because more research on them is needed. So the link, that is what will happen, is that the plan will pass. The cosmetics industry will act as a test bed for alternatives to animal testing. And when these alternatives are proven to be as safe and effective as animal testing, medical research will move away from animal testing. So the impacts are that animal welfare is preserved, and yet we can still have efficient and safe scientific research. So you have the best of both worlds. Now, I will be responding to the affirmations case. So let's see. Onto their first advantage, they say that humans and animals are very different. Well, humans and animals are actually fairly similar. 95% of our DNA is shared. They say that animal models are inaccurate. Animals can be bred to mimic human processes, such as the Zimmer rat, a rat that contains a genetic malfunction that makes it overweight, mimicking how humans, mimicking obesity in humans. Next, they say that 94% of drugs that pass in animal models don't pass for humans. Animal tests are used specifically to establish the safety of drugs. Later testing is done in humans, so that's not really a good comparison. Next, there are very few bad vaccines in the world, partly as a result of animal testing. So the animals are not adequately protected by the Animal Welfare Act. Most medical research is done, and that is 95% of medical research is done using rodents, which are protected. And they specifically say that a bunch of violations of the Animal Welfare Act have occurred, and then they list them. Violating federal law is illegal, and so there will be accountability for it. And yeah, additionally, their impacts do not matter because impacts on animal welfare do not matter for the weighing mechanism of net benefits. So for this reason, we strongly affirm the
Have I been off mute this whole time?
Yeah. Thank you, Tucker. Catherine.
Okay, sure. So, okay, you said that animal testing was essential for diseases, or testing for diseases, according to the Stanford University, but we gave an example from a doctor that was writing for the Huffington Post that said that 94% of drugs that pass for animals, and then later you mentioned that those are for safety tests that are later tested on humans, but 94% of those drugs didn't pass on humans, meaning that the animals that were tested, the lives that were lost from the animals that were tested, didn't work and led to nothing. And then, so you said that it would set back research because there would be fewer treatment. Again, the research that has been done isn't actually that helpful for humans, and it's certainly the loss of life in animals is clear with how cruel and inhumane animal testing is in its just fundamental state. I don't know. But then, so saying that fewer treatments, also we did give a example saying that there are alternatives. There are alternatives for more ethical and safer testing. So the setback to research wouldn't really be a setback because they would use the alternatives. And then so you explained that an advantage to banning cosmetics would be that one, it wouldn't hurt the research, the medical research, and also that it would lead to more alternatives in animal testing. I don't understand how fully allowing animal testing would lead to people searching for alternatives to animal testing if right now they are still allowed and there hasn't been that much research done, but people are still continuing to test on animals, meaning that the whole alternatives argument, if it was even more okay to allow animal testing, wouldn't happen because that's not happening now. And so your argument against us was that humans and I'm sorry, it's like a skateboarder. Okay. So you argued against our point by saying that humans and animals are actually very similar because they have 95% shared DNA. Animals is a very, very broad term, and humans do not share 95% DNA with every single species of animal or every single species in the animal kingdom. So that doesn't really count. And then saying that because we share 95% of our DNA, that any testing done on animals would also sort of transition to people because we're so similar. The 95% even if that was true, even if we did share 95% DNA with every species, there's still 5% that makes us different from those species. And so we have different medical requirements and the species have different medical requirements. And then you said that the safety of drugs is tested on animals, and that there aren't that many bad vaccines. And if there aren't that many bad vaccines, then it's probably because people are being tested on. The animals that are tested on, again, usually doesn't work, so they just die. So then they go to people, and human testing would actually lead to, result for humans in medicine. And then you said that most medicine is actually done on rodents, and you said that they are protected by the Animal Welfare Act. And we specifically said that the Animal Welfare Act doesn't protect rats and mice, which is usually what they mean when they say rodents. And then even you gave an example of rats being used in medical research. And as we said, rats are not protected by the Animal Welfare Act. So saying that they're regulated and stuff is untrue. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Elo?
Okay. Time starts now. Okay. So first I will be okay. So our first contention was that the animal testing is essential to human rights and benefits. And not only does it benefit human life through finding new vaccines and verifying their safety, but it also helps to extend animal life, which we gave several examples for. And our opponents completely dropped this point and did not comment on it. The fact that animal testing has also revealed several help to extend the life of animals and treat their diseases and make their lives more enjoyable by preventing them from suffering. So our opponents completely dropped this point. Also, the standard was net benefits, which is the most amount of good for the most amount of people. However, our opponents have repeatedly gone on to say that most of the majority of their points were focused on the most amount of good for the most amount of animals and the animal rights and the suffering of animals. However, this contradicts this contradicts the standard that they set, which was net benefits, most amount of good to the most amount of people. Our second contention was that that banning cosmetics will so our opponents said that our opponents say that there are several alternatives to animal testing, and that these alternatives should be used rather than animal testing. However, in our speech, we clearly stated that these alternatives are not widely used, and they still need more time to be implemented regularly into testing rather than animals. So their point about this being an alternative completely flops for the time being. Also, our opponents talked about how the 5% difference in animals and humans is enough to completely is enough to say that these animal testings are not effective. However, there are already several examples of how animal testing have benefited humans and helped to lead to several working antiviruses and vaccines. So that point doesn't make any sense. Also, our opponents made the argument that animals, that we were referring to all animals in the animal kingdom when we said that we share 95% of our DNA. However, this 95% was mostly meant to be talking about the animals that are used in testing, which are 95% rats and rodents. And also, we've already said that the majority of the animals used in testing are genetically altered to be more to be closer to humans in their organ systems, so that we have more potent results. So that argument also is negated. So also, their point about animal welfare is also negated by our first contention, which include the vet benefits and the benefits to the wildlife, which I already stated. How testing on animals not only helped humans, but also helped to create workable solutions to several animal diseases. So their points about animal suffering are overshadowed by the fact that several of these diseases, which are detrimental to animal life and create animal suffering, are being helped by these animal testing. So that point is also, so all their points about all their impacts about animal suffering are negated. For all these reasons, please vote for the negation.
Great, thank you. All right. Closing remarks. We'll start with, say it again, please. Parul.
Tucker, next. Or no?
Wait, does Tucker go and then you get the last word? Is that how it works? Okay, sorry.
Yes, I think so.
I had it backwards. I apologize.
It's
Tucker.
okay. Okay. So once again, off time, I will be framing the round and then moving into voting issues or how you should vote. My time starts. I have 3 minutes. My time starts now. So I will first frame the round by saying that under our definition of net benefits, none of the affirmations arguments hold any amount of water, because the definition of net benefits that was not provided by the affirmation that the negation dutifully provided that was not contested for the rest of the round is the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. So, and this does not include non-human animals. So already none of the opposition's impacts hold any water. But supposing for the sake of argument that you should, that animal welfare is a voting issue in this round, leads me to my voting issue number 1. Animal testing saves animal lives. Animal testing has led to groundbreaking treatments in the field of veterinary medicine. So the small amount of lives lost by animals used in animal testing are greatly made up for by the animals saved by new medical treatments discovered with the noble sacrifice of a small amount of animals. So suffering of the few leads to prosperity for the many. That is what net benefits is all about. Next, to voting issue number 2. Animal testing makes medicine safer. Animal testing in the field of medicine is primarily focused to testing the safety of medical treatments. So by allowing this, we will reduce death, we will reduce bad vaccines, we will reduce all of the negative impacts that the affirmation brings up in their speech. We solve for better. And now to voting issue number 3. The counterplan, and only the counterplan, will allow for a safe transition away from animal testing. The plan will force a rush to unproven and nebulous alternatives to animal testing in medical research. making medical treatments either harder to come by or more dangerous to the patient. Only the counterplan uses the cosmetics industry as a test bed for this, allowing for, in the end to animal testing and its replacement by safe alternatives. And for this reason, we strongly negate the resolution. The United States federal government should ban the use of animal testing. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. And last but not least.
Okay. So one of the main clashes in this round was medical use. You guys said most medicine is on rodents and the Animal Welfare Act protects the rodents or rats, but we already stated in our first speech that rats are not protected by the Animal Welfare Act. Also, you guys said that humans and animals are similar, but as we already rebutted it, animals is vague and broad, and there's many species of animals in our world which don't have the same DNA at all than humans. So, and also, like Catherine stated, there's still 5% remaining out of if the DNA is 95%, there's still 5% remaining, which can cause harm to humans. We won this because we explained how it hurts animals and humans and leads to unnecessary death. We also explained how the medicine usually doesn't work on humans after testing it on animals. If you guys want to keep stating the standards and everything, your whole point about how animals help is worthless because that was one of your main points. Also, that 5% makes humans human, so it is significant enough to separate us from rats or any other animals. If for the sake of the argument animal lives do matter, which morally they should, animals die immediately in preventable ways. Also, again, most testing isn't done to help animals, and animals are often subjected to brutally and inhumane treatment. Our point of animal welfare is better because we mentioned how less than 1% of animals testing is done to help animals or the environment. We also won because we talked about how animals are being tested on and aren't protected. You guys kept using rats as an example, and rats aren't protected. For the people, we won because we showed statistics on how most of the research on medicine and stuff doesn't help people and it leads to unnecessary death since it would promote bad vaccines and kills both animals and people. If you guys are saying that we should look to alternatives, then you guys support our side because we already said in our first contention that there are many other alternatives. There are alternatives and then you guys ended your guys' rebuttal by encouraging animal testing alternatives, which supports our side. So our side has less deaths to animal, and it also prevents humans from getting diseases from the medicine. So that's why you should vote for our side.
Okay. All right. All right. Excellent. Excellent work, everyone.
Thank you very much for judging this round.
Yes. What an honor to judge you all. I need to make some notes and submit my ballot. So at this point, I'm going to